Thank you for joining Wars of the Roses. And this video is Lycanthropy, an article taken from Horizon, Volume 9, Number 4, Spring 1950. Lycanthropy. The word lycanthropy, which in folklore refers to the transformation of human beings into wolves, usually by the use of magic spells, is derived from the name Lycanon, a mythical king of ancient Arcadia. According to the legend, the god Zeus came to him disguised as a mortal, and to test the divinity of his heavenly visitor, Lycanon placed before him a dish of human flesh. The god, outraged by this sacrilegious act, transformed Lycanon into a wolf. There are several versions of this old story, and it has been suggested that originally a blood ceremony was involved, by which a stranger was initiated into a clan. It was common for clans to have animal totems, and a person accepted into the clan of the wolf might be referred to as having been transformed into the animal itself. Research of the legend of the Lycanon is far from complete, and it is likely that some natural explanation involving primitive religious rituals was the foundation of the myth. In any event, the ancient report gave rise to an extensive lore belonging in the descent of beliefs regarding witchcraft and sorcery. Human beings, according to medieval accounts, took on the appearance of wolves and ranged the countryside. They were called werewolves, and an extensive literature has developed around this theme. The transformation was not limited to werewolves, however, but was associated with whatever carnivorous animals abounded in various localities. In India, there are were-tigers, and in the Scandinavian countries, were-bears. Africa had its were-leopards, and among the aborigines of Central America, the jaguar was the chosen form assumed by these sorcerers. The Balkan states have also furnished extravagant accounts of vampires, werewolves, and werebats, and the North American Indian tribes were addicted to the belief in were-owls. Possibly the peculiar cunning and extraordinary skill of certain animals gave rise to a rather natural conclusion that these beasts were not what they seemed to be, but in some way possessed human intelligence. Primitive secret societies, like the Leopard Society of Central Africa, adopted the skins of animals as a means of disguise. They copied as nearly as possible the habits and hunting methods of the animal they represented, and many depredations attributed to savage beasts were committed by these human masqueraders. Under such conditions, untutored minds could easily confuse the fact and arrive at fantastic conclusions. Lycanthropy is now regarded as a form of insanity, causing the victim to believe that he is transformed into a ferocious animal during sleep. The mania can, however, extend into waking hours, sometimes with tragic consequences. Under the delusion that they have changed into animals, demented persons have attacked others and bitten them severely, occasionally fatally. This form of lycanthropy is sustained by dreams in which the patient sees himself change into an animal, escape from his house and disappear into some nearby forest or sparsely settled region. Usually, the dream ends at this point, but in the morning when awakening, the sufferer is possessed by the blind fear that he has committed some terrible incident. If it occurred that on the same night animals had attacked cattle, or even prowled about, howling or baying at the moon, the sufferer took it for granted that he had joined the wolf pack and participated in its nocturnal orgy. When the community as a whole believed in werewolves, circumstantial evidence took on greater importance and imagination supplied any detail otherwise obscure. It seems that somnambulism was responsible for some factors. A sleepwalker might unlatch doors and windows, move furniture, and leave indications that he had been outdoors. He might also be seen either departing or returning, and when confronted with proof of such nocturnal meanderings, the afflicted person had no difficulty in believing that he had engaged in more active enterprises while unconscious of his doings. Cases of werewolves are comparatively rare in modern communities. A general disbelief tends to prevent the mind from indulging in such fantastic speculations. Also, it is comparatively easy to check upon the movements of those mentally unbalanced. These conditions, however, do not prevent those seriously deranged from imagining that they take animal forms as the result of spells cast upon them by unscrupulous magicians. Even today, mental institutions are forced to cope with problems of this kind. Under certain pressures, the dream life of the human being can become so vivid as to challenge the supremacy of the waking state. If the temperament is sensitive to certain beliefs, these may be carried into sleep and result in extraordinary hallucinations. It is possible that the werewolf experience, considered psychologically, should be included under the general heading of atavism. Man is not so far removed from primitive types as he might like to believe. There is something of the savage in the subconscious of the sophisticate. Impulses of cruelty, revenge, to say nothing of an all-pervading belligerence, binds modern man to his cave ancestors. It may go even further. Something of the animal kingdom lingers in the subconscious of the precocious biped. He still responds with a primitive savagery to certain stimuli, and when, for one reason or another, the mental faculties deteriorate, the animal propensities are nearly always increased. Those who have visited in remote places and have felt the pressure of savage psychology realize the importance of environment upon mental orientation. On a dark night in the Congo region, the air pulsing with the rhymes of great drums, the marvelous and the miraculous lose their strangeness. Atavistic impulses suddenly come to the surface, and the civilized man is little less terrified than his jungle neighbor. In fact, when pursued by some ghastly form, white men usually outdistance the native in the rapidity of their departure. Back in the club, they assumed the world that they were not afraid. They were just taking no chances. Like Cannon, transformed into a werewolf. If a lifetime of prosaic convictions cannot protect the civilized man, it is no wonder that the savage fall under the spell with few realistic explanations for the phenomena of life. Primitive man sought the reasons for the unusual in his code of the supernatural. To be perfectly frank, modern science has not found satisfactory answers for many problems that plague the savage mind. The present policy is to gather these mysteries into a bundle and label them psychological aberrations. Thus, the term psychology becomes a word to cover a vast amount of scientific uncertainty. It is well known that primitive people have remarkable psychic sensitivity. In this, they probably share the instinctual awareness evident in the higher animals. The world of psychic phenomena still waits to be explored, but modern man is more concerned with objective problems than he is with the subjective forces which surround him in nature. This is not a defense of werewolves, but rather an explanation of the conditions which perpetuate the belief, like the witchcraft mania that afflicted an otherwise rather somber citizenry of both Europe and New England. Hallucinations often affect masses, moving whole groups away from common sense and in the direction of collective delusion. A panic is an example of collective fear, and it spreads like wildfire among those normally poised and self sufficient. In the last century, the American people, barely aware of the implications of electricity, became obsessed with the importance and curative power of magnetic belts. These were sold by the thousands and consisted simply of small pieces of metal attached to appropriate waistbands. They were formidable looking contrivances, completely worthless, but the miracles attributed to them confounded the entire medical profession. These belts did everything but raise the dead, and, like the patent medicine trade, cured countless sufferers of ailments they never had. We merely point out the power of belief to accomplish that which is believed. Even in the memory of the living, witchcraft has flourished. It is still a force to reckon with in great American cities and in backwards communities. Eccentric persons are firmly believed to exercise baneful influences. Cases of were-owls are still reported among the Indian tribes of the American Southwest, and scarcely a Spanish-American village in New Mexico is without a bruja, a witch woman. If bewitched, the sufferer must find a young boy whose first name is Jesus, exchange clothes with him, and wear the clothes inside out. This is a reasonably sure cure. Another explanation of the old belief rather rationalizes the situation. A werewolf may only be a human being who has permitted himself to become dominated by his own animal instincts. Thus, he may be a man in appearance, but a wolf in nature. Pythagoras pointed out that the enlightened human being is a man in a world of beasts, and the unenlightened human being a beast in the world of men. When depravity destroys humaneness in the human creature, all that remains is a raging animal, determined to survive at the expense of his fellow creatures. The Pythagorean doctrine, to the effect that those who practiced animal excesses were reborn in the bodies of brutes, has been interpreted as transmigration. It is much more probable, however, that the great Greek sage really meant rebirth in a human shape, but with an animal-like soul. In all, it is an interesting subject if we seek out the moral implications. Thank you for watching, and please don't forget to share, like, subscribe, and comment. And if you can, please consider donating to Wars of the Rosies. Links to PayPal and Patreon are in the description. Thank you so very much.